Brown called a timeout. Tigers came back with fire in their eyes and reassumed control. O'Neal calling for it. Groves got a hand on it. That was Vernell Singleton that just batted the ball right back to O'Neal, who took care of business.
Tom, one of the advantages of having Shaquille O'Neal in there, not only when you make the pass does it have to be directly at him, his hands are so good, you can throw it in the general area and he's going to pick it off. Look out.
Groves and O'Neal square off, and Dale Brown is pushing Groves. He went after Dale Brown, and the fights are all around.
Dale Brown, a character, unpredictable, emotional.
He was the P.T. Barnum and Bailey of basketball.
Dale Brown is not a conventional coach.
He knew when it was showtime. Don't let him fool you.
We're always going to be good.
He had to be Patton out there leading the troops.
He relentlessly overpowers everything in his way.
Don't let us kill them!
You don't want to go to war with him.
Now, there's no official in his right mind going to go over there and talk to Dale Brown.
He was a scrapper, a fighter. From day one, he came up there with the idea, us against the world.
You did not give this guy a snowball's chance in hell.
Here's this guy out of North Dakota that's going to lead this southern town to the promised land.
Dale Brown has brought his Tigers to another miracle win. LSU has won it. Dale Brown is going to the Final Four for the second time in his reign.
I think he was easily bored by just diagramming plays. It had to be, we're fighting for something bigger than just winning a basketball game.
Dale Brown, LSU's Billy Graham in sneakers.
Dale Brown is a fantastic white person.
There had been violations committed by somebody. Something somewhere didn't fit.
We did everything above board. We don't sell our souls.
Well, the NCAA wanted a piece of Dale Brown.
They start a witch hunt, try to find out who's this Dale Brown.
And it ticked him off.
Sometimes the rules got in his way. I have not followed every NCAA rule, and they know that.
I said to him, I would never fire you, but let's ease out.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Coach Dale Brown.
I know exactly 100% how you're feeling sitting in these chairs. I sat there. People would come and talk. You know what I did? They ain't telling me nothing. You're sitting there thinking, what in the hell is this white honky? What's he gonna tell me?
If an at-risk kid gets suspended, then they're sent to Mohegan. And nobody really wants to go and help at Mohegan, but Coach Brown is one that comes in and he helps, and he realized that some of them may have that crutch to lean on. He takes the crutch away.
Doesn't make any difference if you got a mother or dad. Doesn't make any difference if you come out of a home of abuse. Doesn't make any difference what kind of trouble you're in. You can make something of your life.
Coach relates so well with the kids that we deal with because he comes from the same background.
I didn't want anyone to know how insecure I was living in a one-room apartment above a bar and a hardware store, never slept in a bed, first 21 years of my life. And I was ticked off about it.
They listen to what he has to say. And that's because he's experienced it.
Dale Brown was born on Halloween 1935 in tiny Minot, North Dakota. Born to Charles and Agnes Brown, Dale's father left 2 days before he was born.
You could tell that she was burdened with this raising this child because she was older.
She came off a farm in North Dakota, 8th grade education. It was Depression, 1935, couldn't get jobs. Had to go on welfare for $42.50 a month. Yet not once did I ever hear her speak badly about the band that abandoned her 2 days before I was born. Never once.
He adored his mother. He loved her dearly, and he would defend her on any occasion. Because he grew up in poverty and he knew what it was all about, he was very much considerate of others that needed help. I think he would have gone to war to defend any one of the students that were looked down on. Although I must say that he did have a bit of arrogance because he knew he was good in sports.
I always felt inferior until finally, the first good self-image I had was sports.
As a star athlete in high school, Dale went on to Minot State Teachers College, where he was the only 12-time letterman in the history of the school, lettering in football, basketball, and track. At Minot State, Dale met Vonnie Ness, a cheerleader and runner-up Miss North Dakota.
I saw in him somebody that would stand up for things that he believed in. And even though his aggressiveness was a weakness in some ways, it was also a strength. And so I think I was attracted to that, too.
After graduating, Dale and Vonnie married. 2 years after the birth of their daughter, Robin, the young family moved west to Berkeley, California. After short stints in Berkeley and Palm Springs, Dale took assistant coaching jobs at Utah State and Washington State. In 1972, the head coaching job at Louisiana State University would become available. Joe Dean, a former LSU player who would later become athletics director at LSU, was asked to assist in the search.
And I said, you need a salesman. You need somebody maybe that can promote the game. He can get good players. And I said, Dale Brown's that guy. And he asked me, tell me what you think about LSU basketball. I said, well, let me just say this to you. You will have to play the national anthem, and you might have to sing it. You'll dust the court, and they may not be 1,000 people there when you start. So you've got your work cut out for you.
This guy from Minot, North Dakota, would come into the belly of Southeastern Conference football. He came in and said, I want to make this a basketball town.
The Browns headed east to Baton Rouge. With the daunting task ahead, Dale took a detour to seek guidance from some of the country's most successful people. Among them were Olympic gold medalist Bob Richards, entertainer Lawrence Welk.
Then I called the master, John Wooden.
Known as the Wizard of Westwood, UCLA's iconic head coach, John Wooden, is widely considered the greatest coach in the history of American sports.
I spent a week with him. He was so gracious. I went through everything. I took a pad with me so I wouldn't miss anything, and I wrote down A, starting in A from the alphabet, attitude, B, box in one, bulletin board.
somehow I just immediately, I just took a liking to him, and we had a wonderful visit on many things. And you'd think that first of all it's going to be basketball, but it ended up was more about philosophy and life.
The following year, Brown invited Wooden and the retiring godfather of Kentucky basketball, Adolph Rupp, to Baton Rouge for a banquet in their honor. Despite predictions to the contrary, the football-hungry town packed the ballroom to see the two basketball legends.
Tonight we conclude the John Wooden and Adolph Rupp Honors Day here in Baton Rouge. Coach Wooden, I've had the opportunity to be in your home and Coach Rupp's, and I just want to let you know that how very impressed I've been with everything you've done, and I just hope that I can pattern my life after you and Coach Rupp.
I want to wish you the best of luck, and I hope that good fortune can smile on you as it has smiled on Coach Rupp and myself.
The banquet would be just one of Dale's many unorthodox efforts to promote basketball in Louisiana. He would drive from one end of the state to the other, preaching basketball to anyone who would listen.
Every little town, even some that probably didn't want to hear him. He hung purple and gold nets on baskets all over the state of Louisiana. He delivered little basketballs to newborn baby boys in the hospital. He went to see Mother Teresa, got in a motorboat and rode the length of the Mississippi River from its beginning all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. Took a reporter with him. He was in the paper every day. He read about Dale Brown all the time here, and he made sure that you did.
Despite his tireless efforts, Dale would still face a long uphill battle putting LSU basketball on the map. Louisiana, like the rest of the Deep South in the 70s, faced lingering racial tensions. In his first season, Brown had only one black player, Collis Temple.
Death threats were offered, for me, and I had to sit in the dressing room and couldn't go out and warm up in the beginning of the game, and he was right there with me, and he was protecting his player.
Later that season, Brown was confronted by the president of the Baton Rouge NAACP, George Eames, about the lack of black players on the team.
By God, he said, I'm a pioneer, he said. You got nerve enough to break the blacks down here. I got nerve enough to play them, by God.
Put your money where your mouth is. Wrap your mouth around the word. I know it seems outrageous. It's really just absurd.
Brown immediately began recruiting black players with the help of Eames and the NAACP.
NAACP was the worst thing that you could get involved with if you're white. When Dale Brown got involved with me, that made him become the same target I was.
But Brown would not be intimidated. He continued recruiting black players. By 1975, the team was fully integrated. Despite mounting opposition, Brown would make his boldest move yet, attempting to hire the school's first black coach, Ron Abernathy.
In my hometown, many people said to me, don't go to Louisiana. And Coach Brown, he told me that, if you decide to come to LSU, I'll protect you. I'll stick my neck out for you. Once we got to that point, and I was convinced that he was truthful and honest, then I didn't look back. And I decided to go to LSU.
That really made it worse for Dale, because he bringing in a black coach to this all-white institution.
And the only reason he is alive is because of his spirit, his niceness, because they will kill you to preserve that.
A Ku Klux Klansman called me, I think, like 400 times one night. Dale was getting the same type of calls on his phone. Called him all kind of names, nigger lover, and that's just how bad it was.
Despite the increasing pressure, Dale would once again defy his detractors, becoming a lifetime member of the NAACP.
Dale is one of those that the system is something that he will not back down to. A lot of it comes back to his upbringing. He tells you the stories about his mother and the fear that his mother had. That stuck with Dale.
I saw sometimes how welfare workers treated my mother. I remember this woman comes in, this welfare worker, and she puts my mother in a terrible situation. She starts to cry. Go get your purse. She dug through her purse to see if she was pocketing away any money. And she goes like this to me, like I'm a little dog with her finger. Can't he work? And as a young 10-year-old at that table, I said, never in my life will I see injustices that I won't speak up. I will never be intimidated myself. I won't see others be intimidated.
He came up a hard road. He was determined to walk out of that, and it led him down this path.
His perspective was, by being the LSU basketball coach, I can have a dramatic impact. If I'm successful, if I win. Now, I must win in order to affect change.
Welcome to LSU basketball, 77-78 for tonight's game between the LSU Tigers and the #1 ranked Wildcats of Kentucky. And the LSU Tigers now, as Kentucky's warming up, are coming onto the floor, and I hope you can still hear me as the fans here have really gone nuts for this basketball game.
Coach Rupp in Kentucky had dominated the SEC for so many years. It became the desire when I became coach to dethrone Kentucky.
In basketball, in the SEC, there was Kentucky and all the stepsisters. Dale didn't want to be a stepsister. He wanted to beat and then be Kentucky.
Underneath to Macklin, slam dunk around to Kyle Macy, one of the hottest shooters in the conference, puts it up and in. 20-by-20 Martin all the way, puts it up and in. Phillips goes up and has the bucket.
Against long odds, LSU would keep the game close. However, as they neared the end of regulation,
Personal foul on Rudy Macklin.
the Tigers would face a seemingly insurmountable setback.
And Ethan Martin is gone with 5 fouls. Well, we have seen the first, the entire starting lineup for LSU has fouled out.
Your first thought is, oh my God, we'll never get this done.
Brown would ready his second unit for overtime.
Our hearts are hurting right now. We'll see what the hell we're made out of the last 6 minutes.
It was incredible. Just him driving them and convincing them that they could do it. It's within reach. You can achieve it if you want to. You can if you think you can.
Holmberg, 18-footer, way to go. James Lee brings it down. 7 seconds. He slam dunks it with 5 seconds left to go. Holmberg with the ball. Off to Rick Maddox. That'll be it. 1 second to ball. And there's the ball to have police to keep people off the floor. Where are they?
The win solidified a rivalry with the Kentucky Wildcats that would span Brown's entire career and would signal to America that LSU basketball had arrived.
Who that talk about beating them Tigers? Who that talk about beating them Tigers? Complicated inside of Macklin. Fires one up Rudy inside.
By the 80-81 season, the Tigers were a legitimate title contender as the excitement across the state reached a fever pitch.
He had fireworks shows going off.
He had Mike the Tiger rappelling from the ceiling. You had a Roman circus atmosphere in there.
Tickets were hard to come by. It was a constant sellout.
Rudy Macklin comes to play. MVP all the way. Puts up a force. It is up and it is Who that? That's Daddy Brown. Best damn round ball coach around. He won't quit. He won't stop. Take them Tigers to the top.
The season was going according to plan as the Tigers systematically dismantled the competition. But one player struggling for playing time, Mark Alcorn, would begin fighting for his life.
Testicular cancer. Had to drop out of school. They took him back to St. Louis. Fought it hard for a year. He was near death. His mother called me. Get emotional on this thing. He said, Coach, she said, we don't know how much longer Mark's got to live. And so she said, we went in and said, we're going to give him one last wish. He said, all I'd like, he said, I'd like to see my best friends on the team. We're going to have a benefit so we can take him back one more time to MD Anderson. But she said, we've got our home up for a second mortgage. And she said, we can't pay for the kids to come. I said, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it, Mrs. Alcorn.
First, Dale called the governor, who offered his plane to fly the players to the benefit. Next, Dale called the NCAA, the governing body for college athletics, to tell them about his plan.
I told him the situation. The guy said, nope, that's considered entertainment off campus. What? He said, you can't transport a kid more than 100. Wait a minute, this boy's dying. I'm sorry, you can't go.
Despite the NCAA's objections, Dale immediately began making plans to pay for Mark's 3 friends to fly to St. Louis.
And he got money, slipped it in envelopes, handed it to players, told them what plane to get on, how to go pay for it, their ticket in cash. You know, in every way, those are violations.
Just before leaving for St. Louis, Brown would call the NCAA once again to inform them of his plans.
They said it's against the rule. He said, that's why I called you. I'm going to break the rule. I'm telling you up front that I'm going to break the rule, but we're going to go.
I'd like to be the first to welcome you to the Mark Alcorn benefit dinner.
The benefit would go on as planned, with Alcorn's 3 teammates in attendance. Dale would tell the guests about his run-in with the NCAA.
3 of our players are here. We tried to get NCAA approval and it was rejected because it's an NCAA violation.
Dale is from the Rosa Parks School of Public Relations. If you find a rule that they've created that's unjust, don't just break it, but make sure everybody knows you broke it.
They're wrong. They're making millions of dollars. They legislate against human dignity, and they operate with monumental hypocrisy.
Despite mounting issues with the NCAA, Brown was able to keep the Tigers on task, finishing the regular season 28-3. The team had dedicated the season to Alcorn, who, despite his prognosis, was able to be with the team through the postseason. From his seat on the bench, Alcorn would watch his LSU Tigers reach their first Final Four since 1953.
It's been a great year. You know, every time you win 31 games in a year, it's been a fantastic year. Plus the winning the conference and then getting to the Final Four, you just can't, you know, that's been super.
But the Tigers, with an injured Rudy Macklin, would fall to Bobby Knight's Indiana Hoosiers in the Final Four matchup. Shortly after, Alcorn's condition would worsen, and he would lose his battle with cancer. Despite the tragic loss, the NCAA would begin an investigation into the LSU basketball program that would become the longest in the history of college sports.
Again, another dagger in your heart. So I said, you guys have any compassion at all? Do you have any idea what we're dealing with? So then that stimulated me more.
I mean, that organization does not like to be criticized. And given that Dale was its most outspoken, most credible critic, and without question, they wanted a piece of Dale Brown.
So there's no question, they were trying to get me shut up. And I said, I'm going to fight the NCAA.
The more I've talked to his family and other people that knew him as a child, those moments when his mother cowered from a welfare worker, those are the moments that shaped him.
He told me a story one time he'll never forget. Kind of makes me want to cry when I think about it. The landlady mistreated my grandmother one time, and he was a little boy.
Came home one day, I could tell my mother was nervous and uncomfortable, and so I said, what's wrong, Mama? Well, the landlady, she scolded me. She said, you keep that brat kid of yours out of the hallway. He scuffed up the linoleum in there. And if he does that, you're gonna have to find yourself another place to live. It was a little dinky apartment house in the first place. I took off down the hall and I said, "You leave my mother alone. Do you understand that?" And then the rest of the way down the hall, I scuffed my heels on the linoleum. It was the only way I could solve an injustice.
Never again. He was never going to be that guy. He wasn't going to cower, and he was going to stand between you and the system if you were cowering.
I used to take the basketball team to Angola, the roughest, toughest state penitentiary in the world. I'd take them up there every 4 years, so every group could see what it was like. They'd go in and sit in the electric chair. We'd take them in solitary confinement. We'd walk down death row. One time, there's a guy that comes up to us, his name is U.C. Long.
In 1968, U.C. Long and 3 friends were out of work. In a moment of desperation, one of Long's friends decided to hold up a liquor store. Afraid of what his friend might do, Long grabbed the pistol and was ultimately the only one charged with the robbery. Long would receive $6.50 in the theft. He would pay for his crime with life in prison.
I could tell there was a lot of good in U.C. Long. He's broken up more fights and drug deals and murders. They call him the Big Brother.
While serving as the recreation clerk, I got a call from Dale Brown wanting to know if it was possible that he could bring his team out to do a scrimmage for the inmates at Angola. Not only did he bring the team, they brought an entire portable basketball court.
Before the game, Brown asked Long to address the team.
And I had a basic message that I would try to reach these kids with. That being, everything that happens to you in your life is determined by the choices you make.
Touched by Long's message, Brown would make him an honorary coach. The day after the scrimmage, Brown called the prison to speak to Long.
The last thing he said was, "Ulysses, if there's anything I can do to help you, you just let me know and I will see what I can do to help you. But still, I wouldn't turn to Dale Brown for help."
It would be 3 years before Long would reconsider. The scrimmage at Angola showed the tremendous promise of this 85-86 team.
And I'll never forget looking at the team photo, the start of the year. And, you know, this team was just going to be incredible.
But things quickly began to go wrong, starting a downward spiral into what would be arguably the most controversial and difficult season in college basketball history. Before the season even began, the team's roster quickly dwindled. By midseason, injuries and a variety of other problems would decimate the team. Among the players lost is his standout center, Tito Horford, who Brown suspends for disciplinary reasons.
You're counting on him to be so consistent and produce every night for the team, and all of a sudden, he's gone.
But the national focus didn't leave town with Tito.
The NCAA had been investigating LSU basketball continuously since the Mark Alcorn incident in 1981.
One of the great penalties the NCAA can levy on you isn't just taking away a scholarship or two. It's just dragging something out so long that you're suffering. You know, other recruiters are using it against you. Don't go there. They're going to be on probation a year.
As the NCAA investigation entered its 4th year, Brown's patience would reach its end.
Dale was
vocal. I mean, he was always getting letters from the SEC, from LSU telling him what to say and what not to say, but it did no good. Dale was going to say what he wanted to say.
I've had kids, as the Lord is my judge, that did not have a coat to wear in the winter. I made up a cock and bull story. I got this coat for Christmas, my sisters, so they would feel good about it. Gave them a coat to wear. I have never done anything that I feel guilty about or dirty or pimpish or wrong at all. I have not followed every NCAA rule, and they know that.
But the floodgates and controversies were only beginning for Dale Brown.
With the NCAA inquiry still escalating, Brown would be forced to deal with yet another investigation, this one by the FBI. Electronic listening devices had been found in Athletics Director Bob Broadhead's office. Brown would be implicated in the investigation.
It was Nixon-esque how outrageous the efforts were to try to figure out who was really cheating who.
It would turn out that Broadhead had bugged his own office, attempting to record NCAA investigators holding interviews there. Despite all of these controversies, Brown would attempt to keep the focus on basketball.
I cannot fragment myself, and as a result, I will not talk about anything the rest of the season unless it has to do with basketball, period.
Yeah, make it 26.
But the escalating problems off of the court would continue to affect the team's play.
And Dale Brown's going to get on the officials. He said, give us a break.
The Tigers would struggle to stay above 500, barely keeping their NCAA tournament hopes alive.
That's the icing on the cake right there.
However, as the Tigers prepared for the critical game against SEC rival Auburn, the season was about to take another bizarre turn.
John Williams and Bernard Woodside definitely have chicken pox.
Only with a depleted group of guys that could dress out. They went into Auburn, and the student body came out with surgical masks. They're all thinking this is funny, and Dale just got, how dare them? There had to be some form of conflict, and with that conflict came, all right, we'll show them.
I mean, he's the master. He's as good a motivator as you've ever experienced.
Let's keep the pressure.
With the win, LSU would sneak into the NCAA tournament as an 11 seed. With Tito Horford already out, the Tigers' backup center, Nikita Wilson, would be declared academically ineligible. Finally, Brown would lose Joran Jovanovic to injury.
Got nobody left. I have no centers. That's my three centers.
And then they had this sophomore named Ricky Blanton that was forced to play because of the chickenpox outbreak.
Called him into the office. Rick, we're in a real jam.
So I get a late Christmas present in Coach Brown's office telling me that I am going to play center. Never played a minute of center in my life.
Ricky, I believe in you. I think you can.
Say, okay, I'll do what I can do and see what happens. However, scared to death.
Redden baseline left. Rebound, Ricky Blanton. You say, why was he inside? He's kind of the garbage man on this team.
Dale started championing Ricky as my 6'6" center.
Not having the proper size nor the weight, but in the back of my mind saying this might be a possibility.
And Dale utilized him to the best of his ability, getting the most out of him. He'll get you to believe.
The Purdue game was truly a war, but it was only a day later, LSU took on Memphis State.
William Bedford, 7-footer, gonna be a first rounder in the NBA.
Blanton is there to tip it in.
Ricky Blanton guarded a guy much bigger that, no way he could handle him, but he did.
The place was going crazy. You know, people were going just nuts.
9 seconds to go.
I'd get John Williams the ball somehow.
Redden's going to take the shot. 2 seconds, 1 second, and the game is going to... As LSU has stung Memphis State.
And after we won that, Coach Brown was in his element, the underdog, the story of his life, back against the wall, the glass slipper.
I mean, if you're going to get by Memphis, surely you wouldn't beat Georgia Tech. John Sally, the Spider-Man, they were loaded.
Dale Brown, he got a whole new team in January. He had to readjust everything. Look what he's done.
Dale always had that we against the world mentality, and they really adopted that philosophy.
We were true believers, and obviously our leader was a true believer.
What better cheerleader to have and an optimist than Dale Brown?
And I totally, firmly, 100% believed that I could run through concrete, without a doubt.
Look at Bland right there in the middle of it. Williams inside, finds Blake, and that might do it.
An unlikely team has advanced to the Southeast Regional Final. Dale Brown has brought his Tigers to another miracle win.
The stunning victory would carry the Tigers to the Elite Eight, where Brown would face his old nemesis, the Kentucky Wildcats.
They had won 30-plus games.
The Kentucky team that beat them 3 times during the season. Twice during the regular season, once in the postseason tournament.
And all of those games were real close, but we had to play them for the 4th time in order to go to the Final Four.
Despite their unlikely tournament success, few thought that Brown would have an answer for Kentucky's star center, Kenny Walker.
Kenny Skywalker, everybody's All-America. I'm going to put my 6'6" eliminator on him.
I said he had no shot, none whatsoever.
Like their previous 3 matchups, the game would be a back-and-forth struggle, with neither team able to pull away.
Dale Brown's going to take a timeout. 44 seconds on the clock, and that's critical.
With less than 30 seconds to play and just a 2-point lead, LSU would look for a chance to put Kentucky away.
No shooting clock involved here. Anthony Wilson in the corner. Redden goes to Bland, and the basket's good. And LSU has won it. Dale Brown is going to the Final Four for the 2nd time in his reign. Last game of Kenny Walker's brilliant career.
I was just sitting there with my head down. Coach Brown came over, saw me sitting there, and he put his arm around me. That's something that I'll never forget.
This year, perhaps the Cinderella may be the guys in purple.
It was one of Dale's great motivational moments of bringing this team to achieve what they did. They had no business making the Final Four.
Come on, sweetheart.
After everything they had been through that year, you did not give this team a chance in hell of ever making it to the Final Four. And they did, and put on a really good show there against Louisville. But it truly is the greatest underdog to ever make it to a Final Four.
Dale Brown is a champion of the underdog. He considers himself an underdog, and he spends time and he spends effort encouraging the underdog.
In 1982, Dale hired a mentally handicapped teenager as equipment manager.
My name is Jerry Gandy. I was the equipment manager from 1982 till 1997.
He was Coach Brown's guy. Nobody messed with G-Man. Only the head manager could say something if it wasn't done right.
Dale adopted him. Loved him like a son. He was always teasing, always joking, always teaching.
And it's amazing how he came out of his shell. And the fact that Dad gave him that opportunity changed his life.
Gandy would stay at LSU for the remainder of Brown's career.
I love Dale to death. I don't know where I'd be without Dale.
A few years later, Dale was contacted by the mother of 9-year-old Jamie Roth, who was undergoing chemotherapy for leukemia. Dale went to the hospital to visit Jamie.
He sat for an hour and held his hand and kept telling him it was going to be all right.
His final wish was to attend an LSU basketball practice. Dale would not only honor Jamie's request, he would make him honorary team captain.
This year I'm sitting on the bench and all this. Last year I couldn't do that because I was real sick.
You know, he really wasn't supposed to live any longer from the time I met him than 4 months. And he's held on for 3 years longer.
The coach would be talking, he'd walk up, and we'd be in a team huddle, he'd walk around. He just had open access, but I mean, it made the kid and the family feel so special. It just added years to his life, and I think quality years.
Ultimately, Jamie would succumb to the cancer. The painful loss would be only the beginning for the LSU basketball family.
Maravich, oh Maravich, try to guard you 2-on-1. There's no way to stop your gun. People came to see you score.
Pistol Pete Maravich was LSU's most celebrated player and arguably the greatest college basketball player of all time. After leaving LSU, Maravich had distanced himself from the program, but ultimately accepted Dale's offer to come back and speak to the team and be a guest on Inside LSU Basketball. Seen here shortly after the visit, playing what would be his last game, Maravich would die only minutes later from a genetic heart defect. The entire state of Louisiana was stunned by the loss. Less than 6 months later, the LSU basketball family would lose yet another of their own in Don Redden, one of the stars of the '86 Final Four team.
Redden's body was found this morning by his girlfriend at her home. Police say there were no signs of drugs or foul play here.
Ultimately, it was found that Redden, like Maravich, had died from a genetic heart condition. Dale was asked to give the eulogy at Don's funeral.
It was probably the most depressing day in my entire life. I loved him like a son. I believe the chaplain, just as we're ready to go in, I'm going to give the eulogy, he said, the governor's on the phone for you. I said, oh, man.
On his last day in office, Governor Edwin Edwards called Brown to discuss UC Long's pardon. Brown, who had petitioned Edwards at Long's request, accepted the call from the governor, who expressed his concerns about paroling Long.
Coach, he said, I got these papers to sign, but he said, listen, I don't want to take this gamble. He said, what if the guy does something? And he said, then I'm embarrassed and whatever. And I said, Governor, I'll tell you what. I'm so confident that UC Long is a good man that needs a break, that got involved in a bad situation. If he ever violates the law in any way.
He said, I would quit my job at LSU.
The governor accepted Brown's plea, offering his golden seal and making Long eligible for parole.
The day I went on the parole board, Dale Brown was there. He represented me in such a way that I was granted parole. And the warden says, well, it's gonna take a little while to process the paperwork. We'll get him out of here in a couple of weeks. And Dale says, no, sir. He says, you can do better than that. The warden turned to me and he looked at me and he says, son, go pack your stuff. And people, let me tell you something. Within 2.5 hours, I was processed and rolling out that front gate with Dale Brown. I just can't find the right words, the proper words to fully describe how much all of this has meant to me. But if you've ever spent 20 years, 3 months, 15 days, 16 hours, 37 minutes, and 46 seconds in prison, you would know exactly where I'm coming from.
Brown would take Long back to Baton Rouge to help him prepare for life outside of Angola. Eventually, Long would be granted a full pardon.
The U.S. State Department got a hold of me and told me they'd like to have me be a guest lecturer in Germany. My last spot, I was in a place called Wildflecken. Get a tap on the back, I turn around. Here's this young man, maybe 6'8", 6'9", 250. And he said, I run up and down the court and I tire real easy. Can you show me some exercises? Sure. I said, how long you been in service, soldier? Big old smile. He says, I'm not in service. I said, you're not? Coach Brown, he says, I'm only 13 years old.
And he had this look, 13? You sure? I said, I'm positive, I'm only 13.
Dale would stay in close contact with O'Neal, sending him letters of encouragement as he was being told he should quit basketball.
He said, my high school coach cut me off the team. He told me I was too slow, too clumsy, I've got too big a feet, I could never be a basketball player. Why don't I think of being a goalie in soccer? What should I do? Dear Shaquille, I'm so sorry in what happened to you, but every time in my life when I've had my heart broken, when I failed...
From 13, from being nobody, to 17, sent me a letter once a week.
During those years, Shaquille would come to meet and then dramatically exceed expectations. After moving to Texas, Shaquille led his team to a perfect 36-0 state championship season on his way to becoming a McDonald's All-American. Dale would ultimately land the 7-footer at LSU, beginning what many believed would be the greatest era in LSU basketball history.
The lob to Shaquille O'Neal from TJ.
The combination of O'Neal and All-American Chris Jackson had expectations at an all-time high. But Shaquille's domination made him the target of consistent and flagrant fouls. The blatant penalties would come to be known as Hack-a-Shaq.
They were just beating him to death underneath the basket, and Coach Brown was very sensitive to that.
He had worked himself up through the course of the year to this point where he had reached a breaking point.
Austin heartbreaking into Arkansas. Uh-oh, look out. Groves and O'Neal square off, and Dale Brown is pushing Groves.
If there's an injustice to anyone, he just goes berserk.
It was not one of his prouder moments.
I've been in the NBA 16 years, had a lot of coaches. Coach Brown was the only guy that stuck up for me.
Some people, they wake up itching for a fight. And Dale Brown wakes up itching for a fight on behalf of someone else.
Despite O'Neal's consistent domination,
Blocked by O'Neal.
his teams would never reach their potential.
I think we made it to the final, to the sour 32. You know how they have the sweet 16? I think one time we made it to the sour 32.
After Shaquille's departure, the program would hit one of its most difficult periods. As his teams continued to languish, even many of Brown's most ardent supporters began to question whether he would be able to turn the program around. After 4 down years, the 96-97 team was thought by many to be the team that would bring back the glory years to LSU basketball. Among others, Dale landed one of the nation's top recruits in Lester Earl.
Feeds it down low to Lester Earl, drives for the sack and a nice move, and Lester Earl bangs one in.
Earl came to LSU with high expectations, but things would not turn out as he or Brown had planned.
When he came to LSU, his inadequacies, especially on offense, became readily apparent.
He wasn't playing much here. That's why he was a little disgruntled.
Ensuing discipline problems would lead to Earl's suspension. Shortly after, he would secretly transfer to Kansas. Before leaving, he would make an accusation that would threaten to cripple the LSU basketball program.
Because of his commitment to LSU, he wasn't going to be eligible to play for a long time. And then all of a sudden, he was able to play. Evidently, the NCAA came to him and made him a deal. And because he gave the side of the story that was put forth, He didn't lose any eligibility, and he could play for Kansas. Lester said that he got money from Johnny Jones. The one thing that we all knew was that the booster had given money, and he admitted as such. You know, they claimed that Dale Brown was guilty of things. Whether that's true or not, the NCAA didn't care. They had what they needed.
The NCAA has announced its ruling regarding sanctions against Louisiana State University's basketball program stemming from allegations made by former player Lester Earl. After a 21-month investigation, the NCAA has placed the program on 3 years probation.
They penalized the LSU basketball program by taking scholarships away, and they made it pretty tough.
It was an unfortunate combination of events at the end of Dale's career. You know, the losing seasons and the poor performances on the court combined with the penalties. You know, it left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. Dale was already out when the NCAA thing came down. But you have to go back well more than a year, maybe a year and a half, when he started thinking about retirement. The game was changing, he was changing, and there were things about college basketball and being a college basketball coach that he didn't like anymore.
Is calling for help. Is that a 911 call? If you missed the start of the game, it was a touching scene, really. For many years, Dale Brown was the villain. He was the man Wildcat fans loved to hate. And yet, the fans poured out their love for Dale Brown with a standing ovation, loud applause, and it was truly something to see.
Today is not a sad day for me, but a happy one. Because I've chosen to retire. But retirement can be a rocking chair or a lunching pad, and I'm choosing the lunching pad.
We took off. We did around the world. We stopped in Hong Kong. We stopped in Bangladesh.
Singapore, Bangkok, Manila, Belgrade. And we went down in the Tower of Babel. We swam in the Euphrates River. We pulled off on the side of the road so Saddam Hussein's entourage could pass. And I thought to myself, how does Dale Brown get me into these kinds of things?
He travels nonstop. He knows more people than anyone on the planet.
He'll call me out of the blue. Can you get off next week? He knows I can't. I want you to go to somewhere in Southeast Asia or whatever to look for Bigfoot. And he's serious.
Then he was going to go searching for Noah's Ark. And again, people think that he's so full of or something. But again, this goes back to his curiosity. He loves stuff like that.
So we mentioned a moment ago Shaquille O'Neal in the building, and there he is with the legendary coach Dale Brown, second winningest coach in the history, and he's getting mic'd up. How surprised am I about that?
He never saw a microphone he didn't like.
Well, I was back to go do a film called We Are Marshall. Went down to Coach Brown's office and talked about what I was looking for to go in and play the role. And when you get them on the one-on-one stories, which you know better than I do, they're incredibly entertaining and always have a nice lesson. He's one of those guys who, if you were sitting around going, hey, do you think we ought to, yeah, maybe we ought to go down to, you turn around and they're gone. They're already on their way.
So you're just kind of beginning to learn how to live life. You don't think you're going to get old, sick, or die, and all of a sudden you wake up and all three of them face you at the same time.
An updated medical report on the condition of former LSU basketball coach Dale Brown now describes the stroke he had as a serious stroke. Brown's doctor
kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. When the doctor said, he's got not a very good chance of surviving if we go in and operate on that carotid artery. It was 99% blocked.
It's too dangerous to go in there, and we could lose him if we do. I heard him say that as plain as could be, we could lose him. So I'm going to put him in intensive care. We're going to take some time. We're going to see what happens.
Brown asked the doctor about the chances of the artery clearing on its own.
He goes, Coach, I think it's great that you're positive and that you've got a positive attitude, but the chances of it clearing up our own are almost none. And I remember my dad sitting in his hospital room going,
With Dale still in intensive care, doctors would order an ultrasound on the blocked artery.
And I heard the young man doing the ultrasound turn. He said, I've never seen anything like this before. I could hear him whispering.
A friend says former LSU basketball coach Dale Brown has made what he calls a miraculous turnabout from last Thursday's stroke.
And I said, Doc, what's the story? He said, Coach, your blood clot has totally cleared up. It's impossible. So there's no question in my mind that the Lord decided, hey, this moron been running around, give him a little more time to get his life scored. It's undoubtedly a miracle.
I think he's always been grateful, but of course, anytime you have some type of adversity like that, I mean, it causes you to be even more grateful for your blessings.
Certain things you really want to get done in your life.
I would like to try my best to make the world a better place to live in.
Bonjour, mademoiselle. Chérie, je t'aime. Do you speak French?
It's so easy to not be active. Just to sit in this chair, this is comfortable, it's nice.
But who's going to fight the fight if you don't? I'm totally convinced that we're capable of solving any problem, whether it be the problem of terrorism, poverty, racism, crime, pollution, drugs, whatever plagues. It all depends on us. It's our determination.
I would think at 72 years old, he'd want to just sit back, relax, take it easy, but that's not Coach Brown. He's out there promoting his causes.
You must have the fierce determination and the pride of so many former leaders, Red Cloud, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Cochise, and Geronimo.
He's always felt very strongly about the Native Americans, the injustice that was done to them.
Dale was born in Indian country, and he never forgot the poverty that he saw during those times.
This is the greatest country in the world. But if the door to opportunity does not open to polite knocks, we gotta kick the damn thing down.
With that said, Dale picked up his bags, flew to Washington, D.C., and made the rounds, and he knew what the truth was, and he stuck to it.
And one of the things in there, they talked about education, and yet we can't seem to get the money to build places for Indians to go to school. That's BS.
Dale Brown's a man of action. He will take a risk at the drop of a hat for the underdog. He can't help himself. We received the funding for that year that was necessary. He never asked for any credit, asked for a nickel, and back to Baton Rouge he went.
We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more. This is Jordy and the other guy.
The score, 12-10. We're going to probably at first cut about
Jordy,
a 6-hour movie.
you know Dale's home number? Why? I'm trying to reach him. He wrote a letter about Bobby Jindal.
Never, Dale writes, would I ever be so rude as to not respond to a friend's letters and telephone calls. I wonder if you are really aware of the dissatisfaction people feel toward you at this present moment.
A beloved name in Baton Rouge and never shy with his opinion, former LSU basketball coach Dale Brown has some advice for the governor.
Please don't disappoint us again. We've been disappointed enough in Louisiana. Politicians have to understand they work for us. We don't work for them.
Louisiana made that known, and it was thrown out the window.
Just a few moments ago,
I vetoed the legislative pay raise.
So anybody who would watch this documentary say, I can't change the system, the heck you can't.
He didn't quit fighting the system when he got out of the system. You know, there are a lot of people who will say, hey, you know what, what's in it for me anymore? You know what I mean? I'm not going to be affected by this. Why am I going to keep fighting this battle? That's not Dale Brown.
It is the most asinine thing that I've ever seen in my life.
He wants to make sure that you know, what do we do? How do we take an issue like this and get it in the hands of Sports Illustrated and ESPN and get these other people to start essentially lampooning the NCAA. I gave him a list of names, and I know within an hour he had all of them called. And I think almost all of those places did stories within the next few days about this issue, largely at Dale's behest.
I don't want to be known as some, you know, hey, he's charging the hill all the time. But sometimes that's what I feel like. I feel like I'm planting a flag every day in Iwo Jima or something. But I'm not going to give up, that's for sure. You've walked in here as much as you have Pauley Pavilion, haven't you?
I guess so.
When's the last time you drove, Coach?
Oh, a couple of weeks or so. I can drive, but Nan and Jim don't think I can, and I haven't driven for quite a while.
Wait a minute,
now.
you just got a new license, 4 years.
5 years.
5 years?
Yes.
Well, you can't waste that money.
That's what I say.
Heck yeah, that's automatic.
I've got to live to be 100.
John Wooden has been a great, great influence on Dale. Anything he tells him, he will try to, you know, listen to and improve on.
It's better to keep quiet and be considered a fool than to speak up and remove all doubt.
Oh man, I'm gonna hide now. You're not talking about me, are you, Coach? Oh man. Oh man.
Because of his background, primarily feeling more or less in one sense abandoned without a father, he looks toward me as a sort of a tutor, mentor.
I've tried to practice a lot of the things you do, and I've tried to learn from you, and I have learned a great deal. But I still have a difficulty of I want to always speak immediately what I really sincerely believe, and I shouldn't. I should ponder it. It's the instinct wants me to do it, and it's hard for me to hold back. I feel fake kind of holding back.
You're yourself.
Yeah.
Be yourself. Learn from others, but don't try to be better than you. Learn from others, and the one thing where we're all equal, never cease trying to be the best you can be.
Baton Rouge. He must have been jiving. Didn't he say, Tim said he was going to be late?
I think he did, yes.
He must be jiving with me. Tim Brando Jr. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. I just married, was right out of school, and to move down from North Louisiana, which is where I'm from. Dale knew that I wanted to go as far as I could in the industry. And so whenever an opportunity popped up, he would always say, you know, Tim, got an idea. This is for the ultimate good of your career. That was just Dale looking out for me. But the longer I got to know him, I realized that it wasn't that I was getting particularly preferential treatment. And he does this kind of stuff all the time. I was his broadcasting project. He's got projects all around. I mean, they're littered all across the landscape.
That looks like Shaquille back there with a big S on his chest. Shaquille's, that's what he's got, the S, Superman, huh? You look like Superman. What's your name? How are you doing in school?
I'm doing pretty good.
Fantastic.
Hey, gentlemen. If they're treating you so harsh that you say in your mind, man, I don't never want to go through that again, they're doing you a favor because you're going to get out of here, you're going to do the right thing, you're going to make those right choices, and you will not come back to this institution. Impact is one of the most successful boot camp programs in the nation. I do this every Thursday because I feel this is important enough that these young people get this message, that they understand the choices they have in life. We help prepare these guys to become useful, productive citizens. And again, I contributed all to the fact that Dale Brown got me out of prison.
Hi, honey. What's your name? What is it? Okay, how old are you? Let me ask you a question. The little girl, don't look now, the little girl
already
shake my hand.
Yeah.
She come from an abused home.
He needed help while he was growing up, and he realizes that others are hurting also.
Look at her when she smiles, how pretty.
Did you tell me how to grab a hula hoop, you?
She wouldn't even talk to me.
He's trying to save others from the hardships that he had.
When you finish school, if you have grades to get into LSU or Southern, I'll pay your tuition to go to school for 4 years. Okay?
The reason I say Dale Brown is a fantastic white person, because Dale Brown, it did more for race relations in the state of Louisiana than any politician ever was able to accomplish. It mushroomed into desegregating every aspect of black life in the state of Louisiana.
And somewhere, he brought a ray of sunlight there. And because of him, real crops started growing. Not the crops that'll make you win a basketball game, but the crops that'll change humanity.
He doesn't even.
You don't need
He
to make
doesn't,
that
he doesn't even know the. He doesn't even know the capital.
Is it Forgo?
He's always, one of his great
Hey,
wishes,
Shaq.
he's always wanted to be white, so put nothing but white powder on it, please.
Put white powder.
Shaq came in town for the PSA we did for bone marrow transplants. Coach, he said, I have to introduce you to somebody. Come on. So we leave the room, we go out in the hallway. Here comes this little girl. Huh? Look at that. Look at this. Look at wow. Yeah, nice, huh?
I don't know if you've ever heard, but it's primordial dwarfism.
He had told me that he met this little girl and he wanted to help her and her mother.
That's precious. I'm your boyfriend, right? Nobody else, right?
He said to me, Coach, that little girl just won my heart.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Got an email from her. Dear Coach Brown, Shaquille sent the check, it arrived. I'm deeply grateful. That's the kind of guy Shaquille is. I love him like a son.
Coach is a great guy. You know, basketball is very important, but it's not the most important thing. He wants you to graduate. He wants you to be somebody because he realized that basketball doesn't last forever.
He's 6'11". Did you see it?
Coach and my father, they help instill in me the hunger to want to prove people wrong. So I consider him my father away from home.
You know, it wasn't so much about the wins. It wasn't so much about the trophies. It wasn't so much about the banners. It was about the men. And what he had built, not in buildings, not in facilities, but in people.
To this day, Dale keeps this close relationship with all of his players. In fact, he keeps a telephone address, email list of all of them. And if he loses touch with one of them, he gets all frustrated because he wants to be in touch with every one of them.
This is the best newsman in the country. He keeps me to everything that's going on.
He's really good at reaching out and maintaining contact and saying, hey, I still got my eye on you, I'm still following you, and I'm still sharing this info.
Martin Luther King said it better than I. He said the Emancipation Proclamation or no paper sign can make you free. It's education. You think he'd have been here without a degree?
Not at all.
I'm holding you up to it.
I got you. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I hear your voice in my head when I go to sleep when I think about my
that is the purpose.
All right.
Well, Dale loved his players. There's no question about that. I mean, they didn't call him Daddy Dale for nothing.
He is so emotionally invested in people that is an amazing strength. But I also think it's probably his greatest weakness. I think that it's probably led to more pain for Dale Brown, more disappointment for Dale Brown than losing a Final Four game. I think that over the course of his career, he has been let down by a lot of people that he invested a lot of faith in. Lester Earl being a classic example.
Dale put himself out for the kid and basically felt like he got backstabbed.
Dale was very wounded, probably still is more than people really realize.
I'm sitting here in front of, these guys, basically just drilling me with all these questions. And it's like, we need to find dirt on Dale Brown. And, if we can't find any dirt on Dale Brown, then, it's going to be problems for you. The guy would tell me, just basically tell us anything. And anything to me is like, lie. And a lot of people were still tainted by the situation I made. And so one day I was just at home and I talked with some people while I was there. And I told them, hey, what do you think if I wrote a letter to the city and just apologizing to them? I felt like, it was due. I felt like, hey, I just want to apologize for whatever harm that I caused on anyone. Or whatever, problems that I may have caused, to the fans and LSU and Coach Brown.
My reply was fairly simple. The greatest journey any of us ever go on is discovering ourselves. I believe Lester has finally done that, and I forgive him.
The statement that Coach Brown made about he wiped the slate clean and he forgive me for all that I've done and all this stuff, that just really showed me, how genuine of a person he was and how genuine of a person he is. He inspires me to make an impact on other people's lives as well, because what he did for me inspired me to do for others.
He did wrong, there's no question about that, but the greatest injustice was older men were intimidating, encouraging him to lie to get eligibility back.
Dale Brown figured out how to rail against the system, how to change the system, even though he was the target.
I don't think Dale fought the NCAA or broke NCAA rules just to do it. I think when he saw an injustice, just as he would see them in any other walk of life, if he saw an opportunity to make things better for a kid, to make things better for college sports, he did.
Whatever changes have occurred in the last decade to to make that system more fair, and there have been major changes made. Dale Brown is responsible. For all the slings and arrows that came his way, he'll take that because he knows that the system is better as a result.
I mean, the establishment was just kind of a metaphor for the landlady in his life when he was a little boy that mistreated his mother. So I think that's been his whole career, is fighting the establishment, fighting the landlady.
I've tried to be a person that tried to do right. I tried to stand up against injustices. Now, if you want me to give you the litany of the negative side, let's not do that. You know, Coach, growing up, not having similar backgrounds, but growing up with a beautiful, beautiful mama. The one thing I can remember about her more than anything in my life, she said, if you spend too much time polishing your image, you'll eventually tarnish your character and be an unhappy man. You've never polished your image.
When I graduated from grade school, my father said to me, if you're true to yourself, you know you're going to be true to all others. So be true to yourself.
The man in the glass, huh? When you get what you want and struggle for life, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what that person has to say. For it isn't your father, your mother, your sweetheart, your boss whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow who counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. You may get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass.